Hello, beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, which are a beautiful way to connect with your divine guidance, and soul mentoring. And this provides for consistent support as you move through a time of change in your life. And I also offer a variety of classes. And you can learn more about my offerings at my website, illuminatingsouls.com. I also have a Facebook page of the same name where I post daily. And I have a daily inspiration email blast where you can receive a message from me every weekday. So tomorrow when you wake, I invite you to visit me at my website. But for now, the angels and I are here to help co-create a sacred, loving, soothing space where you can drift off, where you can receive love, and where we can keep you company as you get ready for sleep. So I invite you to take a nice deep breath in and out, and cozy on up and snuggle on in and get comfortable. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you'll know that I use sleep podcasts every night to help me fall asleep. They help me disconnect from the random thoughts going on in my mind. And they give me a gentle place to refocus in such a way that it makes it easier to drift off. What I do is I put my earbuds in. I have wired earbuds. At some point during the night they fall out, but they don't bother me. And I also use the sleep timer on the podcast app. Almost every podcast app has a timer function. And you can set it so that it stops playing when the episode is over. And so that's what I do every night. And if you're new to this concept, you may need to give it a few tries before you find your groove. This episode is going to be about an hour long, so there'll be plenty of time. No hurry. And if you're still awake at the end of the episode, there are lots more in the archive, and you can always queue up another one. My intention is to bring forth the angels for you so that this broadcast is imbued with love for you, divine love. The kind of love that is expansive, that warms our heart, that helps us remember that we are beloved beings of light in a universe that cherishes us. So that is why I'm here with you. So get comfortable and breathe. I know that sounds simple, to just breathe, but there is something about a deep, intentional breath that brings waves of relaxation into our bodies. So just take a deep breath in, just focusing all the way down to your diaphragm, and then releasing. You have done enough for today, and you are worthy of a good night's rest. You know, the experience of sleep is a mysterious one. We're not always aware of how it serves us, other than we might wake up in the morning feeling refreshed, or we might have snippets of dreams that come to our waking life. But sleep is a time of restoration. Our bodies restore, and also our consciousness. In a way, it resets. A lot of healing happens in the astral realm, especially if we ask for it. When we're working with the angels, it helps if we ask for their assistance, because when we ask, it gives the angels permission to help us. So whenever I'm feeling unsettled or upset or stuck, you know how it is, often I'll ask the angels to help. I'll ask them to lift the heaviness. One of my favorite ways to work with the angels is to ask them for inspiration. It's one of my favorite ways to co-create. You know, life happens to us all, and I don't think that it's uncommon to sometimes feel like we've lost our spark. And I don't know about you, but I love my spark. Life is so delicious when I feel my spark, that brightness, that life force, that connection with beauty and opportunity and hope. And there are times I can't feel it. And I wonder if I misplaced it or lost it somewhere along the way. And when that happens, I remember to ask the angels, angels, help bring me my spark. Help ignite my spark. Help bring me sparks of inspiration. And in the asking, it opens a portal for the spark to be reignited. And what I find so helpful when I ask for this is I begin to observe what flows into my consciousness in the days following my request. It's not as if it comes in 30 seconds later. It takes time. But what I do is I observe, and they're wandering thoughts that we all have, you know, the kind of thoughts that come in and said, you know, I haven't talked to this person in a while. I wonder how they are. I should give them a call. Or some video shows up on your Facebook feed and you're inclined to watch it, and somehow it sparks inspiration for you. And this is one of the ways that I co-create. A lot of times, the sparks of inspiration come to me in the shower. I have come to learn that when I receive a download in the shower, that I should listen. I'm someone who showers in the morning. I don't know why you need to know that, other than to say, so when I am in the shower in the morning, my consciousness hasn't had an opportunity to be distracted by a lot of other things. You know, I've come out of the astral realm. I say good morning to my husband and I get in the shower. And so it often feels like inspired thought. You know, if I'm not sure what kind of class to offer next. And if I ask the angels, typically within a few mornings in the shower, I'll have these wandering thoughts that will say, you know what would be great? I should offer a class about fill in the blank. And it comes in as a fully formed idea. And just as a little aside, this is what is known as claircognizance. It's a way of divine knowing. And I find that most of us have this form of knowing, of intuition, that we receive inspired, expansive thought. So it's you, and it's more than you. So this is my invitation to you. If you're feeling like your spark is a little elusive right now, I invite you to ask the angels to help reignite your spark and bring you some sparks of inspiration. Some of you know this already, but this podcast was born of a spark of inspiration. Around October and November of 2021, I was feeling rather flat. You know, I wasn't feeling my groove. I wasn't feeling my joy, my Laurel essence. And I actually offered a class around this, igniting your spark, because it's what I needed. I often offer what I need or what I'm craving. And so we came into Sacred Circle for 4 weeks, and I wrote down the different sparks that were coming forward for me. One of my ways of working with these sparks is that I'm not committed to anything, that I observe and I write them down, but I don't have to do them. And the one that kept coming to the surface was this podcast. And sometimes with these creative projects, I have a tendency to overcomplicate things. You know, if I'm going to do a podcast, I need an editor, and then I need a marketing plan, I'll need to launch, and all of those things felt hard to me. And so I said to the angels, because we get to ask, I said, I need this to be easy. I'll do this if it's easy. The angel said, okay, just plug in your microphone. I already had a Blue Yeti microphone that I'd bought years ago for podcasting. I had a podcast I did for a little while years ago. And I plugged in my microphone, and I knew I wanted the sound to be quiet because it's a sleep podcast after all. And so I took this big fluffy blanket that I have and I threw it over my monitor and my head to make a blanket for it. So I record every episode underneath a blanket for it. And then years ago, I learned to use a free audio editing app called Audacity, which is pretty easy to learn. So I let this be easy. I plugged in the microphone I already had. I threw a blanket over my head. And I started talking into the microphone. And then I edited out my ums and my, other noises. And I published it. So I let it be easy. And that's my method for co-creating. I ask the angels for inspiration. And then I look for the easiest path forward so that I don't overcomplicate something. Because what can happen is these beautiful creative ideas come to us, and then we erect barriers to experiencing them because we have to wait until something else falls into place first. And tonight I support you in opening your heart to your own magic. That you also have streams of inspiration that are whispering to you. And they're invitations because there is a brighter expression of you that is seeking to come online. And one of the things that I have found with sparks of inspiration over the years is that they come with their own energy. When I'm feeling flat and uninspired, I don't have the energy to pump myself up and push boulders up mountains. I need help. I need to feel inspired so that I'll move forward. And so these sparks of inspiration come with their own energy. So here I am. This is our 46th episode. I can't believe it. And you know what? I have not done much to market this at all. I think that's why right now we've got about 30 or 40 of us listening. And I say us because I listen to it too. I experience it very differently at night when I'm trying to fall asleep. And this podcast soothes me too. So here we are. And this is my invitation to you. I'm going to call the angels in who are already here. And they will help you connect with your sparks of inspiration while you sleep. So you take a breath in, and I will call in the angels. And beautiful angels on high, I acknowledge that you are already here. And yet we invite you to join us here. We feel your invitation for us to join you in this sacred space. Thank you for welcoming us with such love and light. Angels, we ask that you help each of us, each of the beloveds here, to connect with sparks of inspiration that will bring delight to their hearts and souls, to help each one of our beloveds here to awaken more fully to the beauty of all that they are, to help clear away any obstacles, any fears or worries or blocks that do not really exist, that only feel real sometimes. If you will clear these through the heart of God, and allow the light to come streaming in to help bring forward joy and goodness and on purposeness and service to walking our authentic path. And beautiful ones, just take a breath in. And feel or imagine it to be so that your angels are with you now. And they're filling your room with a soft pink light. And if you are willing, they will help bring to you your sparks of inspiration. You don't need to know what they are right now. You don't have to play traffic cop or tell them what is needed, because your soul knows and your angels know. And so while you sleep, while you're on the astral realm, your angels will begin to connect you with sparks of inspiration. And all you have to do is in the coming days, just notice what comes to you, what feels light, what delights you, what feels like a yes. Yes, I would love that to happen. And allow yourself to show up in the co-creative energies. Because you, dear one, you are magical. You are magic. And your path is filled with so many blessings. I affirm your future is bright. And there are brighter tomorrows that are coalescing in your name. There is a vibrancy that is you. There is beauty that is you. You are someone who has come here to bring more love and light into this realm. And we appreciate you. And we thank God for the gift of you. That's something that they say at Agape Spiritual Center. They say, we appreciate you and we thank God for the gift of you. And every time I hear that, my heart opens up. And so I share that with you too. We appreciate you. And we thank God for the gift of you. So take a deep breath in and feel the joy of your angels at this opportunity to love you. It is such a joy to love you. It is easy to love you. You are a miracle from on high. Your gift is you. So again, you just breathe and allow your body to grow heavier and relax while your spirit grows lighter. And you come into that great mystery of sleep, surrounded by the love of your angels. And the angels and I will be here for the next little while as I tell you a story. So, tonight's story is going to be a stroll down memory lane to one of my precious childhood memories. And I really enjoy getting to share these with you, so I hope that you enjoy receiving them. I will tell you, I found my way to sharing these kinds of memories with you because Andrew Ackerman, who hosts the podcast Sleep With Me, he does episodes periodically where he shares these kinds of memories with his listeners. And there's some of my favorite episodes that he does. You know, his episodes where he's talked about having a newspaper route when he was a little boy, or his Halloween costumes, and they are some of my very favorite themes that he does. And so when I started this podcast, I thought that I would include these kinds of stories for you too, because there's something universal about them. Yes, that even if your memories were different than mine, they reflect a purity of life. Yes, that all of us have memories that warm our hearts, and there's something really special when we share them with each other and we share our stories. So tonight, I'm going to share with you about one of my most favorite TV experiences as a child, which was watching the annual broadcast of Cinderella. Now, this is not Disney's Cinderella, which you may have grown up with. This was Rodgers and Hammerstein's version of Cinderella, and it first aired in 1965. And I just read the wiki on this, and I can't remember exactly the date already, but I think it last broadcast in 1974, but it aired 8 times. I think it was on CBS. And it starred Lesley Ann Warren. This was her first starring role. She was 18 years old. And Stuart Damon as the prince. Now, for those of you who watch General Hospital, you will know that Stuart Damon went on to play Alan Quartermain on General Hospital. But this was my first experience of Stuart Damon as the prince. So, it used to air once a year, and it was an event. My sister and I would wait all year for Cinderella to come on. This is my best memory of it. This is what I remember. We had a piano and a piano bench, so my mom played the piano. And there was this long, oblong piano bench that she would sit on to play the piano, which of course makes sense. And we would take the piano bench and move it into the middle of the living room. And there was an Afghan my mother had made. It was black granny squares with colors in the center of each square. So each square had a different color in it. And then they were all sewn together. And this Afghan was sacred in our house. There were 3 of us kids, and usually we all wanted the Afghan at the same time. So the Afghan was sacred. And it still exists. My sister, I think, has it now. And it was a source of great comfort in our house. And my sister and I would hang the Afghan over the piano bench to make sort of like a little clubhouse. And we would lay under the piano bench and we would have snacks. My best recollection of the snack at the time was American cheese in the cellophane wrappers and crackers. I'm sure there must have been something else, but that's what I remember. And we would lay under the piano bench with the black Afghan over the piano bench to make a fort, and we would eat snacks, and we would watch Cinderella. And it was magic. Every year, we looked forward to it. Now, the thing to remember about this time was that VCRs did not yet exist. We didn't get our first VCR until somewhere around, I think, 1982, which is why, if you heard another podcast I did, I never took a class at 2:00 in college because I wanted to watch General Hospital, and VCRs didn't exist yet. And that's why the annual broadcast of Cinderella was such a big deal, because it was the only time we could watch it. You know, nowadays it would be on demand, which it is. Just so you know, I looked this up, and at least in the US, it's on Amazon Prime. So if anyone now needs to go back and watch it again, it's there. But back then that wasn't possible. And I don't know that it would have been as magical as it was if we could have just watched it endlessly, 200 times in a row. But we would watch it once a year. And so it was an event for us. And we would sing the songs, and we had a black and white TV at that point, so it lives in my memory as black and white. And so we just loved our time with Cinderella. I'm sure my parents must have been in the room, or maybe my brother was, but all I really remember is my sister and I in our nightgowns, cozied up under the Afghan fort with the piano bench, watching Cinderella. Now here's where Cinderella gets resurrected for me later in life. So it last aired, I think, in 1974, so I would have been 12. I don't know how much I cared about Cinderella when I was 12, but it had definitely grown deep roots in my memories of childhood. And then it went away. So flash forward to somewhere around, it must have been about 1986 or 1987. And I was working at the Samuel Goldwyn Company in Los Angeles, which was a film distribution company. So they had movies for theatrical release, and that meant you would go to a theater to watch the movie. And they also had shows and movies that they would then license for television. And I worked in their television department. And Samuel Goldwyn had produced a huge catalog of films that would then be considered classic films in hindsight, that would get licensed. And also then they would acquire rights to other films and programs that they would then sell and license. So in my job, even though I was responsible for helping to distribute the television programs, my job fell under the film department. And my office, which was actually in the garage, was in their Century City office. But the film department was in Hollywood. So the film department, it wasn't the department that was responsible for distributing films, but they were the department that handled the negatives and made sure that the films were processed correctly so that when they went to make the prints that they were in good shape, and they would edit the sound. And so it was all the post-production needed for film and television. So that was the department that I was in. I don't remember how I found this out, but somehow I found out that we had acquired the rights to Cinderella. I don't quite remember how that information came to me. And I apologize in advance if you're hearing the bird in the background. I can't wait for it to be done with its morning song, so just enjoy the ambiance of a very talkative bird here. Can you hear it? Hello, good morning, bird. So this shows up on my radar that we are acquiring this film. And in the film department, the production department that I worked in, it was all men and me. And I called up one of my coworkers and I said, "Oh my God, we got Cinderella." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, Cinderella from the 60s. You know, Cinderella. In my own little corner, in my own little chair, I can be whatever I want to be. And I think I sang into the phone like that. And he says, "Laurel, you're crazy. I have no idea what you're talking about." And I said, "My childhood, basically. We acquired a part of my childhood. And you need to tell me when the film comes in, because I need to come over and watch it right away, as soon as possible. I need to be there." And I think I called my mother and I called my sister. I was like, "You guys, we got Cinderella." And of course they were excited because they knew what that meant. That had meaning to them. And so at some point I got the call from my coworkers in the Hollywood office. And they said, "Okay, Laurel, it's here. We're going to be screening it." And what would happen is they would screen the prints to see what kind of quality they had so that they would know what needed to be done in post-production to clean up the print or the sound. They had to quality check everything. And I was like, "Okay, do not start it until I get there. You have to wait until I get there." And I drove my car down Fountain Avenue because that was the quickest way to get from Century City to our office in Hollywood. And I pulled into the parking lot and I went into the screening room with them and they turned it on and my childhood was projected upon the screen. And I don't know that I started to cry, but there may have been a few tears. And I just kept squealing with delight, I'm sure. I'm sure I must have been emoting all over the place. And they were laughing at me because it was funny. And it was likely, in all likelihood, the first time I'd ever seen it in color because we had always had black and white televisions. And all the music came back at me. You know, the magic of it came back to me. And it felt as if something really beautiful and powerful from my childhood returned. I still knew all the words to all the songs. Remember the song, "It's Impossible"? It's impossible For a plain yellow pumpkin to become a horse and carriage, impossible. All of those wonderful songs. And it was a full circle moment. I would go on to get the VHS or the DVD. It probably wasn't the DVD. It would have had to be the VHS at some point. I got a copy on VHS. And it just created such a sense of continuity and warmth for me. And for some reason, I wanted to share this with you in case, first off, you ever had any memories of watching that version of Cinderella growing up. Or maybe there was another show that had that magic for you. And I thought what we could do is I'm going to watch a little bit of it and describe it to you. So hold on just a second. I'll be right back. Okay, so the movie begins with Stuart Damon as the prince and his entourage. They're riding real horses on the set, and they come into screen, and he's thirsty. They have been away for a while. He has been away for a while, and he's going back to the castle and to his kingdom. And before he goes back to the castle, he's thirsty. So they stop at a cottage for some water. And they call out to the cottage, and Cinderella peeks her head out. But she doesn't dare emerge because her stepmother, her evil stepmother, will be angry with her if she leaves the house. But the prince coaxes her out, and he asks for some water. And she gives it to him. She gives him a drink of water. I'm sorry, that bird is still going. Hopefully it'll become a gentle part of the ambiance of this episode. The prince asks her why she is alone. And she says that her stepmother and stepsisters have gone to the castle to welcome back the prince who had been slaying dragons and looking for his true love. Of course, the prince is charmed by this because she does not recognize him. Why would she? She never leaves the house. And so his entourage lets it slip that he's the prince as they're riding off. And she goes, oh, it was the prince. And Stuart Damon makes the most incredible prince, right? He's handsome, and he had that beautiful sort of accent, but not really accent. And so we start now with our first musical number where the prince sings about seeking his true love. And then in the next scene, her stepmother, Cinderella's stepmother, and their sisters come back from seeing the prince. They caught a glimpse of him. And Cinderella almost lets it slip that she saw him too, but she backtracks. And so the stepmother starts concocting a plan to see if she can make it so one of her daughters might marry the prince. It's clear they are three nasty women. Yes, the perfect archetype of nastiness in a fairy tale. Yes, like Cinderella does not matter. She has to do all of the work around the house. And so she's off in a corner listening to them scheme and dream of the prince. And then one of the sisters says, "Did you see the way he waved and smiled at me?" And then the two sisters argue about who the prince smiled at. So they continue their scheming. And while they all scheme, we now get to hear Cinderella sing one of the key musical songs of Cinderella, which is, "In my own little corner, in my own little chair, I can be whatever I want to be. My sister and I loved this song. And I loved this song because it also spoke about daydreaming, right? We've talked about that before, about how much childhood is about our daydreams. And this song was all about all of the dreams that lived within us, that even if we're sitting in our little chair, in our little corner, we can dream whatever we want. It's a really beautiful song and truly brings back that beauty of childhood. So this is the next song that we hear in the musical. In the next scene, we see the prince coming home to talk to the king and queen, his parents. And the king is played by Walter Pidgeon, and the queen by Ginger Rodgers. And the king lets Prince Charming know that they are not happy because he has not yet found a bride. So the prince is getting a lot of heat. It's time for him to find his person. It's time for him to find his princess. And, maybe he's being too picky about it. I don't know. But we all know that it's because he has not yet met Cinderella at the ball, right? But for right now, he's kind of getting it from his parents. So the king and queen decide to give a ball. They're going to invite all the young ladies of the kingdom so the prince can choose from among them. The prince is reluctant. He would rather wait until he falls in love. But the king says, no good. You cannot wait to fall in love. We cannot leave something this important to chance. You have to produce an heir so that our kingdom will continue. So the prince kind of resigns himself to this idea of a ball. And then they announce the prince is giving a ball, which turns into a big musical number, which I think is the most wonderful thing about musicals. Yes, anything can be turned into a musical number. So, I think in life, people either love musicals or hate them because of this. I love them. So now we're in a big number about the prince giving this ball and the dreams of the girls of the kingdom are ignited. The women, the girls, the daughters, they're dreamy, they're wide-eyed. Maybe it will be them, yes. The dream of sort of every girl in the 60s, I think of those ages, like maybe I will get to marry a prince. This is what this whole number is about. And something I just discovered that I had forgotten in this song, they say that the prince's name is Christopher Rupert. So I guess he's not named Prince Charming, which of course he's not, but Prince Christopher Rupert is his name. Okay, so now Cinderella's stepsisters and their stepmother have prepared for this ball, and of course Cinderella is left at home. So she sings a refrain of "In My Own Little Corner" because she is so sad that she cannot go to the ball now, especially because she knows how nice the prince is. But then something happens. The magic happens. The magic happens with the kinds of effects that they could do in 1965. There's some glitter, and then her fairy godmother appears, played by Celeste Holm. And she is decked out in glittery goodness in a lovely shade of peach with a giant tiara. And she is going to help Cinderella go to the ball. And the fairy godmother says, I am here to make your dreams come true. And Cinderella says, I want to go to the ball, but I know that it's impossible. The fairy godmother says, impossible? And we are preparing for another one of the musical numbers that's awesome, called Impossible. She starts listing what you're going to need. She says, you're going to need a coach, 4 horses, and a groom. And Cinderella says, is that possible? And the fairy godmother goes, well, sensible people would say that it's not, but... And she starts the wonderful song. And she starts by singing that all the dreamers in the world are dizzy in their noodle. But she's a fairy godmother, right? So she can make it happen. What are fairy godmothers for, after all, right? So she has her awesome magic wand, and she says, I noticed a pumpkin in your garden. And then there are 4 pet mice in a cage. And then they need the coachman and the groom. And the fairy godmother notices 2 brother rats underneath a shrub. And this is where the beautiful song Impossible comes in, which again was one of my absolute favorite songs as a child. Part of the lyrics say, but the world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and don't believe what sensible people say. And I just love that because I definitely was one of those dewy-eyed folks, right? I didn't believe sensible rules either. And then the magic happens. And the pumpkin becomes the carriage, and the mice become the horses, and the rats become the groomsmen. So Cinderella, it's happening. It is happening. And next, we need to transform Cinderella into a princess. So this is the next magic that happens. So again, the fairy godmother, she waves her wand and Cinderella is transformed. And they create this with the 1965 worthy special effects. They have Lesley and Warren turn around and they put some magical stardust on the screen. And as she turns around, she is transformed. And she is so beautiful in this. Her dress is gorgeous and very princess worthy. And of course, she has the tiara and the iconic glass slippers. So she puts on the slippers and they fit her perfectly, and she is now ready for the ball. But there's a catch, because there's always a catch, right? She must leave the ball before midnight, or else she will be back to the way she was before. She will be there with four white mice and the pumpkin, and she will be in her Cinderella gear. So she just needs to leave before midnight. And as we know, things do not go according to plan. But for now, it's time for her to go to the ball. So we now cut to the ball. The prince is not having a good time. He is not interested in any of these girls. But then Cinderella appears at the top of the staircase, and everyone gasps. The king asks, "Who is she?" And the queen says, I do not know. And the prince, he is speechless. He clearly has found love in an instant. Of course he has. He is our prince, and she is Cinderella. And everything goes quiet, and he walks to the staircase as she slowly descends gracefully. And they stare at each other. They do not break away from each other as their eyes have met. And she comes down the staircase, and he awaits her arrival. He is speechless, and he takes her hand, and he kisses it, and then the orchestra swells and plays a beautiful piece of music, and they immediately begin dancing perfectly. I don't know if this is a waltz or what it is, but it's definitely one of those, the dance from The King and I, they are exquisite. Cinderella's dress is swirling and swishing about, and the prince is in tights. Stuart Damon looked good in tights with his tunic, and all of the other girls, the women, they are looking, and especially the evil stepmother and the evil stepsisters. And this is going to start a wonderful song where they say, why would a fellow like a girl like her, a girl who's merely lovely, but that doesn't happen yet because they're still dancing. And it is one of those beautiful dances, and he even takes her out onto the terrace so that they can have their own musical number. Because for right now, they are going to have their musical number that starts with 10 minutes ago I saw you. It's a gorgeous song between the two of them. Again, my sister and I knew every single word back then. It's a really beautiful song. So they're getting to know each other, and they're singing to each other about the miracle of their love. Because again, it's our fairy tale. So it's the 10 minutes ago song. The room had no ceiling or floor. We murmured our how do you do's. I wanted to ring out the bells because I have found you. It's a very sweeping, beautiful song. Right? Every little girl's dream come true. She is witnessed by the prince and he loves her. Not that too many of us had to recover from those kinds of dreams, right? But in this moment, it is real and it is true. And then this segues into the evil stepsisters song where they are complaining. Why would the prince want a girl like her who's merely lovely? It's a great song, very funny. And you don't need me to tell you the rest of this, right? Clearly, Cinderella forgets about the midnight rule. And the clock is striking midnight, and she dashes out, leaving a glass slipper behind. That, of course, then requires the prince to go around and try the slipper on every girl in the kingdom until he reunites with Cinderella. Truly a glorious experience as a child. It really was just perfection back then. And my hope is this walk down memory lane. I don't know if you ever saw this Cinderella, but if you didn't, my hope is it reunites you with some of your childhood fairy tale memories too. And if you haven't seen this Cinderella, or maybe you haven't seen it since you were a kid. You can look for it on Amazon Prime, at least here in the US, and it will make you smile. It will bring back memories for you, and I'll be interested to hear from you about how many of the songs you remember. So thank you so much for letting me share with you some of my childhood joy with you. I love this about the timelines of our life, that vibrationally there is no past and no present and no future because it exists, right? So that in this moment, I get to be in the joy of my little girl with you, right? Little 8-year-old me under the piano bench fort with the black Afghan and my American cheese slices and crackers, watching Cinderella with my sister. And we can all have a pajama party together and watch and sing and remember and be in the fairy tales of our childhood. So thank you for letting me share this with you. You rest well. The angels will stay with you. I love you very much, and I look forward to spending time with you again. But for now, I wish you the sweetest of dreams. Thank you.